You know, there's a very specific element of video games that most people don't talk about, mainly because it has had one of the most hardcore yet depressing downfalls in gaming history. I believe that's saying a lot because I played Paladins for years and I'm still sad. So let's take a look at mobile games, one of the most convenient ways to entertain yourself with your mobile device. Mobile games made their grand debut in 1993 on the Haganook MT2000 with the most basic Tetris game I've ever seen. You gotta start somewhere, and I believe any version of Tetris is a good way to start regardless of the device. 1997 gives us 400 million sold Nokia 6110s and a very iconic mobile game in Snake. We all played this during class at some point. I will promise you this, one day we will be able to play War Thunder on a rotary phone. I will not rest until I officially see it. Now let's fast forward to 2008. It's been a year since the first iPhone was released, the very humble beginnings of a cult. During the month of July, the App Store would make its debut to the world. There were a lot of game developers who went on to take advantage of the new technology to go on and create games for your mobile devices. This changed the mobile gaming scene practically for the rest of time. Now, during the early years of this new phenomenon, playing on a flat screen instead of having to click away on a Nokia, there was a part of the experience that we rarely see today. Some people may think it was never real to begin with because of where we are now, and honestly, that's fair. But mobile games used to be a one and done purchase. You bought the game and boom, you get all the content that comes with it as well as future content through free updates. This obviously didn't last long because microtransactions just had to become a necessity in 2009, but in December of said year, one of, if not the most iconic mobile games of all time would release to critical acclaim and probably became the greatest game of all time when using the bathroom. I'm talking about Angry Birds. Generational isn't enough to describe how big of an impact this series of games had for the mobile scene. Angry Birds to me is the Mario of mobile gaming, and thank the Lord they managed to keep it up all these years later and still going strong. Also, this is the reason why Angry Birds 2 is a 6 out of 10. After Angry Birds the game, the golden age of mobile games had begun. Here's a list of standouts that I personally love. Not only the original Angry Birds, but Seasons, Rio, Star Wars and Go, Subway Surfers, Jetpack Joyride, Candy Crush Soda, Bejeweled, Fruit Ninja, the Temple Run Duology, Geometry Dash, the Baseball Superstar games, just to name a few. Mobile games stood the test of time for a long while, but it eventually had this insanely sad yet painful downfall. I personally believe the last amazing mobile game was Pokemon Go, and after that the downfall began, and it wasn't as apparent because it took some time to settle. Take a look at where we are now. Games are trying to convince you that it's not following a certain trend, or there are games that spend most of their budget on marketing and not the game itself, as well as general false advertising, as well as the worst ads of all time. Holy fuck. For me, this mainly includes ads for games where the game being shown is purposely terrible. Getting the most simple of puzzles incorrect should not be this frustrating to watch, but the marketing works very well to make you download the game itself, and now you've wasted your time and possibly your college savings on a game that isn't even what it's advertised to be. Evany is a piece of shit. Imagine getting this wrong and saying that only 0.1% of Earth's population can solve this. Obviously, not every mobile game that comes out now is like this, but a good majority of them are terrible and they make us fall for their traps. But instead of actually developing those cool ideas, they instead need to try to fuck around with trends of making us think that their game is really cool with ads and general marketing just for us to download it and be very disappointed with the game and ourselves for falling for the bait. Despite the endless potential of how amazing these games can get, we're probably never going to hit that peak ever again, which is a damn shame. But I want to take a look at one of the more underrated games to grace our cellular devices. I don't believe it gets talked about as much as it should because during the time of its release, the talk was towards other mobile games at the time, and still to this day. Let's head back to 2012, and here's the reason why I believe Head Soccer is one of the more underrated mobile games. 2012 was a huge year for mobile games, although this was a grim reminder that Bad Piggies was a real video game. We also got Super Hexagon, Arcane Legends, Where's My Parry, Temple Run Brave, Asphalt 7 Heat, but the big boys made their mark immediately. Candy Crush Saga, Subway Surfers, Clash of Clans, and Angry Birds Star Wars. It all makes sense now. It's interesting learning all of this while Head Soccer released earlier in the year, but it would be overshadowed by most of the games I just mentioned. Now the release date is a bit confusing. Head Soccer was either released on February 3rd or February 4th, but when it gets weird is the platforms. I saw that it was released on both iOS and Android on the same date, but then I saw that there was an update for Head Soccer to be compatible with Android devices devices on May 31st, 2013. I have no clue what's correct, but either way, it did officially release for mobile devices, which is the most factual thing I can say right now. Developed by D&D Dream, a South Korean game studio, and you would think they would make their own country the best character in the game, but you'd be surprised. Other than that, from what I can tell, there is zero information or documentation on this game when it comes to development or any behind the scenes info. But regardless, let's take a look at a childhood favorite of mine, and no, this does not correlate with Nostalgia Bomb because believe it or not, I definitely play Deca Sports more. This is Head Soccer. Now, because this is a mobile game, the general gameplay is going to be very simple. On paper, Head Soccer is an easy game to pick up, although things get a lot more complicated when you play and the more you think about it. 1v1 Supernatrual soccer with Olympic level of diversity when it comes to characters. 1 minute of playtime and I think it's obvious how you win. You can move right and left, double click either direction to dash. You also have the ability to jump and kick. The kicking is not just for normal soccer purposes. Induce pure legal violence by kicking your opponent in the face however many times you want. Also, it's hard to not notice the power meter filling up at the top. When that fills up, you gain access to your power shot. This is where the supernatural and fantasy element comes into play. While you're flaming yellow, once the ball makes contact with you, you'll unleash your power shot. This shot's properties is dependent on who you're playing, as every character has their own unique power shot. You're also able to counter these shots back at your opponent with a well-timed kick. Like I said, the gameplay on the surface is very simple, but overall there is some form of strategy regardless of who you choose to play. The CPUs in this game are very interesting though. There are ways to take advantage of their code, but most of the time it's up to you to be smart and get the win on your own. Although let's dive a bit deeper into this. There are 6 different stats that affect you and your gameplay. Movement speed, kick power, jump height, dash speed, how fast your power gauge fills up, and a unique stat that we'll talk about later. In order to gain these stat upgrades, you have to gain and spend points. These are the only currency in this game, and because this is a mobile game, it is law that microtransactions are mandatory. Although during this time of the golden age of mobile games, microtransactions weren't as exploitative against the player. For Head Soccer, pay to win is an option, but it's not the only way to actually stand a chance against tougher competition. Not only can you use these points to upgrade your gameplay experience, you can also use them to buy characters and other elements of the game. Speaking of which, there are different ways to customize the gameplay and stats. The costumes give you stat boosts for as long as you're wearing them. If you get hurt in your match, it'll fly off your head and you'll go back to your base stats. You actually unlock a good number of these unique headwear through the survival mode, but again, we'll get to that soon. So there are objective elite tier costumes to use, but generally they won't last too long unless you're a god at this game. Next up are pets. Take an animal species of your choosing to the battlefield and hope they survive the Mario Strikers levels of violence, except it's multiplied by 100. Whenever you bring your pet onto the field, after every match it'll gain experience and slowly evolve like a Pokemon. I'm not joking about the evolution part. There are actual evolutionary stages to these pets, and it's super cool. Your pet will have one of 3 archetypes: offense, defense, and special healing. Level 60 is the max level, and a lot of these final forms are really damn cool. And yes, they can die in the midst of the intense action, but they are the best soldiers. Very honorable if they're with me, insanely annoying and game changing if my opponent brings in a fully evolved purple Sonic the Hedgehog. Next up, to pair with the costume headgear, are the costumes for your character's practically non-existent body. These are your basic sets of gear that boost your stats, except the stats here with the respective costumes are permanent once you equip them. You unlock these through their respective game modes, so let's get into that. Head Soccer started off with very humble beginnings when it first came out. There weren't that many modes to play for a while. First up is arcade mode, your average quick play. Choose your character, but when choosing your opponent, it's very unique. In order to unlock the next CPU, you have to beat the opponent before them. Now, instead of unlocking every CPU in one go, you actually have to unlock them with the playable characters you have unlocked. It looks like this. Here you see that I have defeated every single CPU with one character, but here's my progress with another character. It's very interesting that you have to start from the beginning, especially when you unlock a new character and want to get a feel for their unique power. This also acts really well as a semi-training mode because you can figure out ways to counter certain characters' power shots and get a feel for the timing. You also may have noticed these emblems at the bottom before you get into a match. These are match achievements you can earn when going up against a certain opponent, from winning without getting hurt to winning without conceding a goal, or even your pet staying alive throughout the entire match. It brings its fair share of replayability and a nice challenge, especially when you go deeper into the CPUs and the CPU difficulty starts to spike a little bit. Next up, we have the tournament mode, a very basic 3-round tournament. Pick up your character and go up against a random group group of opponents and go for the tournament cup. It's basically arcade mode, but you just play 3 matches in a row and get a trophy on your character. Now let's take this tournament format to a whole new level with the head cup. Imagine if this game was released in the past few years. The dirty jokes would be hilarious. The head cup is a mode where you're put into one of 8 groups, 4 contestants per group. This is the preliminary rounds. You play through the group stages and the top 2 from each group advances to the final 16 tournament, and from there it's a normal tournament. I enjoyed that the scale is a lot bigger in this game's world because the stands are constantly filled with fans ready to risk their lives because the stadium will only stay intact for about 15 seconds max. Absolute carnage. This mode is a lot of fun and definitely my go-to. Next on the list is a mode I feel like we don't see in games as often as we used to, the iconic survival mode. The title speaks for itself. Play a gauntlet of non-stop matches and go as far as you possibly can. This mode gives both characters a unique meter of sorts, those soccer balls underneath your power shot gauge. That's how many goals you can let up in one match. If you give up a certain amount of goals, then you lose. Although whenever you win, you'll recover some goals. That's based on how many stars you have after defeating an opponent. Basically, the faster you win, the better chance you have at surviving future rounds. But here's where that special stat comes in. The survival stat gives you more survival points. You can have up to a maximum of 10. So the first 30 or so rounds should be cakewalks, especially if you have a character with a damn good power shot. Every 10 rounds, your opponents will gain 1 survival point. So eventually they'll get to 10 survival points, putting everything into balance. Also, you'll go up against the cyborg every 10th round and play for a chance to unlock a costume that it's wearing. Well, that's a bit of a lie. You unlock the ability to buy the costume with your points. It's kind of a shame that we don't gain access to that costume after we defeat the cyborg, but it is what it is. This next element of survival mode should be obvious, but who you go up against every round is random besides the cyborg. That's the only fixed opponent you're guaranteed to see multiple times. So you better hope the further you make it, you go up against some of the weaker characters. When you lose, you'll get a rank based on how many rounds you've completed. The max rank is double S rank, but I'm 99% sure survival mode is infinite. Now time for a bit of another variation of the arcade mode, the league. It's insanely simple. Choose your league of their respective difficulty, more so the level of competition you'll be playing against, and it's an 18 match gauntlet with 10 contestants. You go up against each opponent twice, and whoever has the 2 best scores will go up against each other in the final game. That's pretty much it. It's just a standard league mode. Now these final 2 modes is where the creativity shines, starting with death mode. This is a 30-stage campaign where you have to fight lackeys and 1 boss each stage. There are a ton of matches. Holy shit. I heavily underestimated how many matches there truly were the further I got into this mode. The catch here is that for every stage, there's a different obstacle / hazard that gets in your way. This affects both players and all you have to do is win in order to move on. But everything gets more and more chaotic with every stage, and it's fucking awesome. Also, the boss lineup has changed a lot throughout the updates. This was the initial list of the bosses for death mode when it was added to the game, and here is where we are now. A lot more challenging, and I wish I was playing this when things were easier because I would unlock Finland with no issue. The final mode is the fight mode. Think about classic Street Fighter arcade mode. It's practically the exact same format here. You have to defeat 8 opponents, and after that there are 4 more challengers to take down. In between matches you have minigames to participate in. Basketballs in the toilet, baseball, and destroy the UFO. This is the closest we got to beating up a car. Each competitor has their own health bar, and whoever gets their health depleted first loses, but if time runs out, whoever has the most health wins. It's basically your average arcade mode from a traditional fighting game, but instead of constant fisticuffs violence, it's NFL Blitz violence, but soccer instead. As you could probably tell by now, I am a true American. This mode is a ton of fun, and here is where you can unlock the ability to buy pets as well. There's also a multiplayer mode which allows for local multiplayer and playing online against others. I promise you, I tried, but no luck unfortunately. Head Soccer's game modes are really cool. Death mode and fight mode bring in so much replayability with their overall depth. For me, nothing really stands out in a negative light. I like everything here. Now we get to my most anticipated topic, the characters alongside the update history. I accidentally bit my tongue, that hurt. Head Soccer is still being updated to this very day, which is insanely cool to learn. 14 years and still going strong. You love to see it. Here's how we're gonna do this. I'm gonna talk about the roster mainly by talking about the updates because there are a ton of updates. So obviously to start, version 1.0, the base game upon initial release. Head Soccer actually actually started with fewer characters than I thought, although this first version of the game gave us the most characters in one go. Our very first 12 characters: South Korea, Cameroon, Nigeria, USA, Japan, Russia, Argentina, Italy, Brazil, Germany, Spain, and Kepler-22b. Kepler-22b is the first character that doesn't represent a country on this earth, and with their own unique flag. Its power is the power of mystery and RNG. Whenever this alien uses its power shot, you'll get a super shot of the initial 11 characters. It's always random, so it's possible to only get one power shot for the entire match, but that's super rare, and totally hasn't happened to me before. Now moving forward, future updates would give us small batches of characters. Also, this first version of the game gives us the first 3 game modes, being arcade, tournament, and multiplayer. So a bit limited, but you gotta start somewhere. Version 1.1 gives us Great Britain and France, 1.2, Mexico, the Netherlands, and Cyborg. The Cyborg character is the next character who doesn't represent any real world countries. This fucking robot can bleed and get a black eye, so things are starting to get serious, as well as the first character to have 2 different power shots outside of Kepler. One when it hasn't been hurt with a giant fist, and rockets once it does get hurt. We also get survival mode and Bluetooth multiplayer. No further comments. Version 1.3, Turkey, Portugal, who is totally not Spider-Man, and Devil. I always thought this character was actually a vampire, but seeing his flag makes the most sense for an actual devil character. Although funny enough, his power shot is actually named Vampire Shot. Never mind on anything making sense, I'm so confused. Also, Devil is the first character you actually have to buy with real money instead of the unique unlock condition or buying with the in-game currency. The Devil was a big inspiration for future characters, like being the first character to change their form when activating their power shot. This would become a staple for future characters, but it wouldn't live up to its full potential until much later on. Also, he looks like Dante from Devil May Cry. Am I the only one who sees that? I really hope not. Next up is version 1.4, one of only 2 updates to give us 4 characters: Canada, Chile, Poland, and Azura. I'm starting to notice a little trend here. Azura is the 4th non-country representative. I call him this game's Akuma, at least when it comes to overall design. Definitely a fighter, but Azura isn't directly referencing Akuma. That's just how I see it, because we're talking about this Azura. 1.5, Egypt, Valentine the Clown, and just straight up Super Saiyan. Yeah, this is a real character. The obvious Dragon Ball reference is obvious. And apparently that's the Spirit Bomb, so now we're starting to get into reference heavy territory. But we still have a ways to go until we get there. 1.6, Ireland, China, and Greece. China is straight up Sun Wukong, which is awesome, and King Leonidas from 300. So that's the beginning of Head Soccer. A pretty good way to get things started. From release all the way up to April 3rd, 2013, we got 30 characters, 4 game modes, and lots more to come later on. July 21st, 2013 is when we would get version 2.0. New Zealand, Sweden, and Z. I never realized this until I learned about it a few years ago, but New Zealand's power shot is a reference to the national rugby team, the All Blacks. Really fucking cool. The All Blacks is an awesome team. Also, apparently his face pays homage to the late great WWE wrestler Umaga. That's also really cool as a fan of WWE myself. Z, on the other hand, straight up a zombie. The first instance of nightmare fuel in this game. With this new big update, we also get the league mode, so it's time for the start of a new era with this game. 2.1, Israel, Australia, and Denmark. Other than Denmark turning into a missile launcher, not much going on here. 2.2, Luxembourg, Colombia, and Romania. Now here is where we actually get our vampire character. Obvious Count Dracula is obvious. Also, Romania has the most interesting power shot, and I'm starting to think this is the reason why there aren't that many female characters in this game. Maybe they just didn't think it through, I don't know. And Luxembourg has a discount Prana plan. 2.3, South Africa, Austria, and Thailand. The only thing I really have to say about this wave of characters is that I really like South Africa's hair color. 2.4, Saudi Arabia, Switzerland, and Singapore. Oil drums, the Yeti from GTA 5, and Naruto Ninjutsu? What if Naruto was set in Singapore this whole time? That brings us to the end of this wave of updates. Honestly, really tame compared to what's coming up next. So, by April 18th, 2014, we're currently at 45 characters and 5 new game modes. The next wave of updates sets the tone for the rest of the entire game in the best ways. The evolution of Head Soccer starts here. July 9th, 2014, version 3.0, Belgium, and a mystery character known as Pluto. He is the beginning of what the future of Head Soccer would become, at least character-wise. Pluto is really cool, other than the fact that you have to spend 20,000 points to play against him in arcade mode, but his power is insane. Once his power is activated, activated, he takes the form of Raiden from Metal Gear Rising, but his actual shot, he turns into a Titan from Attack on Titan. Pretty insane to think about. This is where the supernatural element really shines, and the future is looking so bright, I'll go more blind than I already am. Also, Belgium's here too. This update also introduces us to the head cup mode as well, and so we get to version 3.1. This update is for those who are fans of Terminator and or Star Wars, Croatia and Uruguay. This is where the real fun begins. This update is where every single character moving forward will now have 2 power shots, whether you're airborne or on the ground, as well as a unique counterattack. 3.2, Hungary, India, and Hong Kong. This is probably one of my favorite waves of new characters. Hungary doesn't reference anything specific as he's just designed after ancient times in Greece, although Dark Souls is the first thing that comes to mind for some reason. Also, his face reminds me of Solid Snake, so Metal Gear Dark Souls. Let's not make that a thing, please. India represents one of the most iconic zoners in fighting games, Dalsum from Street Fighter. Now, despite that, he actually turns into a flaming mummy. I love how they were able to keep the country rep accurate to Dalsum, since he's also from India in his respective franchise. Finally, we got Hong Kong. As most people know, Bruce Lee is one of the greatest people of all time, so it's really cool seeing a reference to his legacy in this game. Now, real quick, I want to take a break. This was around the time I started playing head soccer back in 2015. I remember that Pluto, Croatia, Hungary, Uruguay, and Hong Kong were the best 5 characters in the game. Everyone at my school played this game alongside the other popular mobile games at the time. If you had them or you were able to defeat them, you were king for a day. Seeing these 5 brings back a lot of after school memories of me and friends grinding this game trying to defeat all 5 of these characters before we had to go home. These were the OG 5 best characters in all of head soccer. Now, moving on, version 3.3, Ecuador and Mon K. We got Rocky Balboa when he enlisted, and the Hulk if he were blue and looked like Clark Kent. Mon K is the second character that you have to pay real money for in order to unlock. I can see why, but overall, this why has 2 question marks next to it. 3.4, Czech Republic, Nepal, and Georgia. We got the God of Thunder in Chinese mythology, straight up Street Fighter, and a combination of references in Nepal, Gundam, Gurren Lagann, and Invincible Steelman Daitarn 3. Very obscure to me, but I appreciate it nonetheless. That brings us to the end of this wave of updates on July 8th, 2015, and things are starting to heat up. Now, the next 2 waves are their own respective solo waves. Basically, next up is 4.0, then 5.0. The former gives us Indonesia, Ukraine, and Serbia, Sub-Zero with Scorpion's attacks, Lara Croft if she was blonde, and Blue Wonder Woman. Although 5.0 was the next big boy update. January 15th, 2016 gave us a new game mode and 2 unique characters that don't represent a country, Water Mabot and Pumpkill, releasing alongside the brand new Death mode. As of this date, the only 2 character designs based on food, and they're very unique. Our sentient pumpkin's power gives me the idea of a Grim Reaper, hence why they were the final boss of Death mode at one point, and our alleged robotic watermelon feels like the anti-hero that most people make fun of, and eventually becomes a villain because of constantly being clowned on for being a watermelon. Fun fact, mainly because I forgot to mention this, but once Pumpkill was released, that's when we started decapitating people. 5.1, Bulgaria and Finland. We got ourselves another Dragon Ball character, although Bulgaria gives us a more traditional design and power shots that represents DBZ much more effectively. To me, this is the real Super Saiyan character. Finland has one of my favorite character designs, and it's a damn shame I may never unlock this character naturally in my lifetime, because this is a great way to represent Angry Birds, especially since Rovio was actually founded in Finland. Amazing detail, but easily the most difficult and time-consuming character to unlock if you don't use points. I hate everything. 5.2, Honduras and Fiji. I immediately thought of The Last Airbender when I saw Fiji. That's where our favorite me Rusty was born, so he might know this mysterious monk. Apparently, Fiji's air shot might be a callback to Zenyatta from Overwatch, which is a very interesting pull if you ask me. If you get one good look at Honduras, I think it's fair to assume based on design alone, that's your classic anime swordmaster right there. Shoutouts to Inuyasha. Now 5.3 is a very interesting update, not only giving us one single character, but the most unique unlock condition we have, as well as a character that represents a completely different sport outside of soccer. We got Madagascar and he's awesome. Basketball is one of my favorite sports, and I really like that we get a crossover of sports starting with this character. In order to unlock him, you have to download D&D Dream's most recent game at the time, Head Basketball. I've only played Head Basketball for about 4 hours in total, but it's so much deeper than Head Soccer when it comes to gameplay. It's the same general concept but basketball instead of soccer. It's pretty quality. Anyway, this makes Madagascar probably the easiest character to unlock because you just need head basketball installed on your device, and as long as you do, you're good to go. 5.4 gives us the first of 2 mad scientists in Norway. Apparently there's a similarity to Junkrat from Overwatch once he's powered up, which is a very unique contrast, and we get our 69th character, and thankfully they're one of my favorites. So nice. Mongolia. Now this isn't a one-for-one reference to Food Wars, my favorite anime of all time, but I will always see it like that because it's too easy for me and I fucking love it. January 24th, 2017 brings us to the end of this wave. This is probably one of my favorites, although with what's coming up next, it will lead us to our final and biggest wave of updates as of now. I believe we're at the halfway point, which is crazy to say at this point. Each update gets more and more crazy than the previous, and by update I mean characters. 6.0, the 5th anniversary update brings us the new fight mode and 4 characters alongside that mode. The Philippines, Senegal, Bolivia, and the best country, Silicon Valley. Baseball Tomboy, my favorite sports anime and Haikyuu, very aggressive golf from a rich guy, and Shark Boy. If you remember this movie, you're a real one. I hope we get a lava girl in the future. 6.1 is the next character you have to download a game to unlock, but for me this one's a bit underwhelming. We get straight up boxing. Download D&D Dream's new head boxing game at the time and be pretty disappointed. The game isn't terrible, but ironically it doesn't hit the same as its predecessors, but I like that we're getting different sports being represented here instead of just soccer. Speaking of which, 6.2 gives us Iceland as our next character of a unique sport. He brings in chairs, cameras, a guitar, and wears a cool mask, but apparently design wise, outside of the mask, his face is based off of The Undertaker. Take that info as you will, because personally I don't see it. Now let's speed through the next 4 characters, 6.3 and 6.4. We got Panama, Peru, Vietnam, and Iran. Yet another possible Overwatch reference, an average nurse with a vengeance for some reason, GTA Online Biker Club, and the Green Goblin. And then we land on 6.5 all the way through 6.12. This is one hell of a lineup. Costa Rica, aka Saint Seiya, Knights of the Zodiac. Honestly, I don't know what I just said, but it sounds interesting. Ghana, the last character to represent a unique sport as of now, and yes, fishing is a sport. Fight me. Definitely the most normal concept out of what we get moving forward. He knows. I didn't know Thanos plays soccer like that. One of the first elite characters I got despite having to pay for him. We'll get to that later. I also didn't know Chuck Norris was from Venezuela. Next up is Boomtank, the final character for the time being that we have to unlock through downloading another game. A really cool concept, but for some reason gives me the idea of Advance Wars. Not a bad thing, just something I wasn't expecting. Did you also know that Master Roshi was from Algeria? Yeah, I had no idea either. Breath of the Wild is a great game. I wonder if we'll see this version of Link if I was in Taiwan, but I'm poor, so I guess I'll never know. I have high hopes that the next King Kong movie will take place in Congo. And now we get to an interesting part of this update wave. Now, the Doge meme will always be funny to me, except for when people try to turn it into a shitty currency that wouldn't amount to anything in the long run. 6.13 gives us Starbase, a character based on a real life person who did this and this. I shall not say his name, but the similarities are there regardless. Anyway, you can't have King Kong without Godzilla. Say hello to Tanzania. Also, let's be real, this is just a cursed image overall. We all know Albert Einstein was a genius, but holy hell is his soccer skills off the fucking charts. This is Paraguay, by the way. He has a portable brain that's in a glass jar and he puts it on when powered up. Honestly, one of my favorite characters. I have a question for all my Berserk fans. What are your thoughts on Iraq and Berserk being tied together? I couldn't come up with anything, but the character is insanely badass and destructive. A bold prediction, the next Harley Quinn movie is gonna be in Morocco. This girl is fucking crazy, but also really fun. Next up is Kenya. Design wise, she's very simple, but she'll put her paper mache bird beak to work on your head when she powers up. And then for this next character, I only have 2 words. Octopus pirate. If I ever make my way to Wales in the future, I would have high expectations to meet an octopus pirate that's more octopus than human. Now, we come across a very, very intriguing character, Qatar. Qatar in this game is an enigma. On one hand, we got our very first and so far only character to be set in a wheelchair. On the other hand, Avatar, more specifically this avatar, and this makes me conflicted. Although I do know that Tunisia is basically the overpowered main character of an isekai, although apparently this character has about 6 different references within the power shots: Spider-Man, Godzilla, King Kong, Doctor Strange, Game of Thrones, and the character's design possibly being based off of this webtoon. Now, we're on to the last 5 most recent updates: 6.18 to 6.23, Suriname, Malaysia, Uzbekistan, North Korea, and TSLA. I'm going to have an aneurysm. Let's talk about the 2 huge elephants in the room. I am so surprised that we have North Korean representation, including you-know-who being the character, as well as Tesla getting its own character, and even banners in the game praising said owner of the company. You probably noticed it throughout this entire review. It's difficult to miss. When I downloaded this game about 6 months ago, I was shocked. But it is what it is. What the hell can you really do here? Funny enough, you actually have to pay $10 to buy North Korea, so that fucking tracks. While Tesla is currently the most recent character to join the roster, there are a lot of references. First things first, apparently this character is designed after South Korea, but clearly got a big glow up, and honestly, you love to see it. He also references Virgil from Devil May Cry, and one of my favorite characters from Dragon Ball, Trunks. Now that we got that out of the way, out of respect, I will talk about the previous 3 characters. Suriname is a fever dream of a character. Surprisingly, we got about 4 different references here, but considering that this character when powered up looks and moves like Arakune from Blaze Blue, that's not surprising. The Exorcist, The Ring, Spirited Away, and Midsummer. I don't even know if I said that right. Apparently Malaysia is a Witcher 3 reference, which is pretty cool. And to all my Neon Genesis fans, Uzbekistan is the character for you. Good luck trying to unlock him without using real money. I personally haven't seen the anime, but it gives me the inspiration to start. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all 101 characters we currently have. 2 things. I find it hilarious that the 100th character was North Korea of all countries, and the last update was a few months ago, and luckily D&D doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. At the very least, I hope they fill out the empty spaces if the next few updates are going to be the last. Regardless, the theme of the back half of this entire roster is be over the top, extremely flashy, destructive, and everything else you can possibly think of. I love that this game is still getting updated after all these years, similar to most super popular mobile games of their time. You love to see it. I have a confession. I spent a lot of money on this game. This is why I have so many characters, costumes, and pets. I fell into the rabbit hole of microtransactions, and honestly I have no regrets because I got my money's worth, and I personally deem it to be worth it. This makes me want to go on about how Head Soccer handles one of the worst elements of video games. I mentioned this earlier, but pay to win is an option. But if you want to grind for a certain character, you can definitely do that. Just know it'll take a lot of time. And this excludes the characters you actually have to buy with real money. Every other character has an unlock condition that you have to meet in order to make that character playable to you. Now don't get me wrong, I do have some characters that I unlock traditionally through the grind, but most of the others I did spend money on. One thing I love about mobile games during this time is that it truly felt optional to pay real money. It's very flexible and accessible when in need. At some point, Head Soccer implemented this new system for payments that you're looking at right now. 3 different packages of different values. This is mainly how I spent my money because I would actually acquire the characters and extras that are a part of that package. You can choose this or buy skill points by themselves and use those for whatever you don't have unlocked. One thing I have noticed with a lot of mobile games is that they try so damn hard to keep your attention once you get done with the tutorials. They force you to do a bunch of shit when you just want to start playing the game. They throw so many deals in your face to get you to spend money constantly. The gameplay is usually underwhelming, everything is behind a paywall, and for some dumbass reason, there's an energy system. Now, it's time to rant. So if you don't want to hear me rant about general mobile game bullshit, skip here and I will meet you back there, okay? Okay. Let's rant. I personally never understood the concept of mobile games having an energy system. Basically, once you're about to play a game mode, it takes up some energy in game. You can only play for so long in one sitting. There is an intentional limitation on how much you can play and how long you can play in one go. Once you're completely out of energy, you have to either wait the entire recharge time or spend real money so you can keep playing. This is such a turnoff in any game for me because because why would you limit us to how long we can play your game for? You want people to play your game, but proceed to give them a reason to not play your game in the first place, aka the stupid energy system. Let's stop putting these limits on players and how much we can play in one sitting. This is why players don't get that far in your game unless your gameplay actually makes the experience worth it. But most of the time it doesn't. This is one of the biggest problems with mobile games. It's shit regardless, and I hate it. You want people to play your game, give us good reasons to commit instead of giving us shitty ads that misrepresent the product you're trying to build. Don't be surprised if I rant on about this more in the future. Granted, some of my favorite mobile games have this feature, but it doesn't feel like it's intentionally trying to not let me play. But overall, let's get back to it. Head soccer is insanely accessible because you can jump straight in with no issue or forced tutorials. If you decide to spend the money, you get to reap the benefits as well as playing as much as you want for any amount of time. But if you value your financial decisions, then enjoy the grind because it's one hell of a challenge and it will keep you coming back. Hopefully. Personally, I can't guarantee it. It feels like an achievement when the game tells you that you unlocked whatever character you were pursuing. In my opinion, this is how you do microtransactions correctly. Make them a pure option. Don't make your game heavily reliant on it in order for you to stand a chance. Surprisingly, that's really my only miscellaneous topic. And yes, the rant was warranted because it just pisses me the fuck off, and this is a great excuse for me to at least mention it. Other than that, the only real negative is mainly a me issue. I see myself playing a few matches and getting fatigued. I'm 22, turning 23 soon. This shouldn't be happening. I've beaten Persona 4 Golden in one sitting 4 times. I beat Spider-Man 2 in one sitting twice, and I've extensively played Tekken 8 story 3 times. What the fuck does that say about me? It's normal to get tired of a game, but not in the way that makes you want to put it down for an extended period of time. It felt very sudden, like I was exhausted, but not really exhausted. I don't know how to explain it other than the fact that I might need more sleep. Also, there are a bunch of glitches in this game that happen at random, but they really don't do all that much. They're just pretty funny to run into. So by the time I'm working on this project, there was a big update that released a new game mode, Awaken. Now I'm far too deep into this project to just stop and go over every single aspect of this mode like I usually do in a normal review, but I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I never mentioned it. This is practically soccer Monopoly, and once you complete this mode with certain characters, you'll be able to awaken that character into a stronger being. This is mainly set around the first 11 characters that released with the game back in 2012. There are also unique sports like power slapping and fencing. From what I can tell, it's a very ambitious mode, and I like that we got some new representation for the OG characters. But for now, only Cameroon is available for this mode, and future characters will come along with future updates. At least that's what I hope. This has a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see where it goes. That is, if I can manage my money like a responsible person. But I'm not good at Monopoly, so that basically tells the whole story. So overall, I very much love Head Soccer. It's addicting, rewarding, and insanely fun. I hope this game continues to get updates for more years to come, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're at the end game of Head Soccer as a whole. Although considering who the 2 most recent characters are, honestly, I'm a bit worried, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. Mobile games have become insanely polarizing the last 7-8-ish years, and that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon, but at the very least, I'm happy I got to live through the golden age at the cost of experiencing what we have now. Merge Mansion and the Royal Match games are scams.